Yo, what's good? Yeah.
Yeah, I just
Me
don't. I
too.
think that if person's not willing to marry you because they may not get more, then you should be marrying somebody because you love them and you want to. Even if it ends, if this relationship ends tomorrow, I still want the best for you.
Yeah.
And if
you don't
that
know how
person
you're gonna
doesn't think like that, then you shouldn't marry that person.
What world is this?
and you don't know how you're gonna act when
And
you're
you
in
ain't listen. If a person that marries you or choosing to marry you, like, listen, if things end tomorrow, right? Not after they done caught you cheating. That you got to make them have this decision before.
A video
See?
said that's cap.
Put him in the fucking bedroom. Get him out.
Yo, hold
Right.
on. Where's my hat? Adrian, you about to say something. Hold on. She been capping the whole time, man.
Adrian gone too. Where you go?
He about to say some
Internet is like
everybody who capping the internet telling on him, boy.
Oh man.
Listen, I think I don't know if what Sean's saying. I'm at first when he was saying, I'm like, damn, but
no, he's upside down.
Yeah, hello.
that was a sign, Adrian.
Oh,
That
no,
was
I
a
don't know.
sign.
I got perfect service. I don't know what's going on.
no, not when you got US Cellular, you don't.
Well, I got Verizon. Don't do that. Don't do that.
Yo, why everybody who got good service always say they got Verizon?
Always. Yeah.
Let me
you
see the
got
back of your
Verizon,
phone.
bruh.
Let me see the back of your phone.
What you need? Funny. Nah, but I think I don't even know who said it, but she was talking about like marrying somebody because you love them. That's the reason why people get divorced all the time, because they're marrying for the wrong reasons. I don't think you should marry somebody primarily because you love them, because throughout the marriage, your feelings are going to change, right? As y'all say, people change. So you're going to be changing from 23 to 32. They're going to be changing. So once the feelings change and you go through these seasons and the periods of when the love is not there, then what keeps you together? So I think the reason why divorce is so high, people don't know what it takes to build a marriage, and it's not built on a solid foundation. That's why that 3 to 5 marriage certificate. You know what I'm saying?
So what are the right reasons though? What are the right
Love
reasons
is the
to get
right
married?
reason.
Right.
Love
Love
is
is
the
the
right
right. Love
reason.
is always the right reason.
Love is the right
It
reason.
shouldn't be the only reason, but it
Right.
absolutely is
Right.
is
That's
the
the
Well,
right
let-
reason.
primary
It's
reason.
So
not. It shouldn't be the
let him
primary reason.
respond. Let
The
him respond.
primary reason that you marry somebody should be because of purpose. It can't be feelings,
What?
because feelings change. And when feelings change, the only thing that will hold you together should be purpose. Because that's solid. That's something to say, well, dang, even though I'm not feeling this person, even though I don't want to be with this person, we have purpose and our purpose is aligned. And if we split, now that purpose won't be able to fulfill itself. But
Well,
feelings
purpose
change
is ever
all the time. That's
changing.
why people break up and that's why people get divorced.
Purpose is ever changing. If anything, it's
Purpose.
values that you should stand on because values are more static. So, yeah, like it just doesn't. Love should always be the foundation of any romantic relationship, and then values should be what drives the relationship forward and holds the relationship together. Like, there's no way you can, or that you should enter in it into a marriage and not have it based off of love.
Well, I think we had this conversation before because in some countries people have arranged marriages and those
Right.
marriages last a very long time and the foundation is not love.
The
Right. Because they
foundation
can't.
isn't love,
Because they
but
can't leave.
also the relationship isn't sustained based off of likability either. Because most of the times they don't even like each other, but they're building based off of whatever their value system is set off of. So I still don't even think that that's realistic either. I don't think arranged marriage is right either.
Yeah.
So
Love,
Success
love,
over longevity.
I'm not saying
love
love
makes
is
you
not
do all of
important,
those things, though.
You
Love is the driving
but what
force. Love is the
happens when you
root
don't love the person
equation.
anymore, though?
Then you shouldn't be.
Like what I'm
You
saying, if
shouldn't be
y'all
married
put
to
a
somebody you
poll
don't
up,
love.
Yeah,
hold on, if
I
y'all
You
don't.
put
should
a
not be
That
poll
don't
up,
married
make
to
right?
somebody you don't love.
Listen, I'm not saying you don't. Yes, you need love too, but I'm saying purpose has to be bigger than love. If you were to put a poll up, 99% of America would probably say yes, love is the most important thing in a marriage. But when you look at the rates as a whole, I'm not talking about individually. As a whole, the majority of them still end in divorce. So what does that mean? Stop making love the primary thing when it comes to being married. Like the data shows, everybody will say, "Oh, it has to be love. It has to be love."
There's no data on love though. There's
I
no
think
data.
The
No
number
data
one
on
reason
love.
that people get divorced is due to financial reasons. I think the point that he's making, because we've had this conversation before, yes, love is great, but love is not enough in a marriage. Love is
Right.
not going to pay your bills. Love is not going to help you raise your kids. It's not going to help you do the day to day. And there are going to be points if you've been in a
love is not
relationship long
respect.
enough, right? Like if you've been in a relationship long enough, you may not always like the person you're with. You might not. You might go through these phases. Like, yes, I love you as a person. I love what we built. But in this moment, I don't like you. And people
Right.
go through that. And I think to his point about purpose, aside from the love, what else is keeping you together? Are you staying together because this works for you in a financial situation? Are you staying with this person because you know what, they're a good help for you with your health or your family, whatever it is? There's multiple reasons. I think his point is that love is not enough. Yes, it's great to have. I think it's the glue that keeps things together. It gives you the little extra reason to keep pushing, but it's not enough. Because if that was the case, a lot of us would have married the first person that we loved.
Well,
And if you look back at the first person that you loved, and you may be like, you know what, if I had loved them and I married them, my life would have been this way. It may not have been as successful as it is right now. So I think that's the bigger conversation about it when it comes to, let me not speak for you, but I think that's what you're trying to say, Adrian. That is
Well,
not
let me ask a question. Let me ask a question here. So for y'all saying love, tell me one relationship that y'all had that was based off of purpose that failed.
Well, to answer your question, I would have no purpose for any woman I didn't love.
Right.
No purpose.
Yeah.
None.
Right. Yeah.
Tell me a relationship that a foundation.
I'm answering your question. There is no woman I was in a relationship that was only purpose. Love is the driving force. If love doesn't enforce all the negative things, see, people have this idea that love is supposed to be beautiful and flowers. No, love is waking up when you don't want to see nobody and still dealing with them.
Mm-hmm.
Love is the driving factor. Love is what makes you do all the dumb shit that comes with the relationship.
And love
That's
is a
love.
choice every day. Like you wake up choosing love, choosing to actively love, your significant other. So it's not easy. I don't think anyone ever said that love is easy.
No, but people assume that not that it's easy, but it's supposed to be lollipops and gumdrops. That's not the real world.
Yeah.
Right.
That's not
Well,
the real
I think
world.
in addition to love, right? Because love is very important, but there's also the respect factor. So you could love somebody, but maybe for whatever reason, you might have something that's going on mentally where it's just completely disrespectful, out of your control. You still love the person, but things just got too wild. Doesn't mean that the love is lost, right? You could love somebody, but you know what? I'm struggling with addiction, or I love this person, but I'm also struggling with mental health, to where it leaves the person neglected or whatever else is going on. It doesn't mean that the love is absent, but that's also not enough to keep the relationship going.
I agree. But when all those other structures break down and now your purpose changes with this woman or your purpose changes with your partner or whoever, what are you based on? What's your foundation? Because if it's not based in love, then you won't have enough of anything else to sustain any relationship with anybody.
Right.
And to your
You
point,
could love
Alex,
somebody to the end of time.
to your point, Alex, where you were saying you could have married somebody you loved, back when you in your youth or whatever. That's true, but were y'all centered in love together? You could a lot of times women have loved men more so than men have loved women, especially in the youth, right? We don't really see it the same way y'all do. Y'all could fall in love at 18, 19 and it'd be a magical thing for the rest of your life. But that's not really reality for us. So when you meet someone and you're centered in love, all the bullshit you go through is founded in love. Everything. If you have beef, if you don't want to wake up next to them, if they getting on your nerves, if they bad with bills, if they hanging outside too long, if they not coming home when they supposed to, everything falls back to love. Do you love that person enough to drive the purpose? To drive the day-to-day.
What if that person never changes so that you're just supposed to just love them through all the and just
No, I'm not saying you're supposed to do anything. I'm just saying that the driving factor of a marriage or relationship is love. That's it. That's all I'm saying.
So I think a question was posed earlier though, and Alex, you can jump in. But all these marriages are failing because of the foundation of what you're describing. So if even if they are, is it the right thing? And then one thing I was thinking about, Alex, before you jump in is you can get a lot of what you get from love from fear.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And that's probably something we need to think about. If somebody fears you, you can often get them the same thing would do if they love you.
Mhm.
And the difference with people loving you is they also willing to take more advantage of you because they don't fear you. And a lot of people get hurt by the people which they love. Alex, what were you about to say?
No, I was just gonna say, like, I agree. Like, love is super important. Love is what makes me want to give it another try, another day. However, what we have said in previous conversation is that love is not enough. And I've heard people say, like, I love you, but this just didn't work out. And just because you love someone doesn't necessarily mean it's the most fruitful situation for an individual to be in. So back to my point again, love is not enough. You need more than love for the relationship to be successful. Love is just intertwining. Love is intertwining all of it. It's the glue.
Hmm. Okay. So we kind of went around about, but final thought B on the whole conversation.
Well, it was a lot. My
Hmm.
final thought. Mm, sign a prenup. That's my final thought.
God damn.
Exactly.
You got $2 in your pocket. Sign that
You
prenup.
got $2 in your pocket.
Put him in the fucking bedroom. Get him out of here.
Well, we don't get into that. But, sign a prenup.
No doubt, no doubt, no doubt. Hey, awesome conversation. And things can go left, right, up, down so quick, with those type of questions. Interesting. I'm a ponder on it because I still feel that love is slightly overrated. But we'll see. So if you just tuning in, welcome, welcome. This might be risky. See my panel up here looking amazing as usual, and we're gonna jump into the next topic. So is mental health why is mental health so taboo in the black community? Is therapy needed? Is it important? Will it help to progress us forward as a people? So why is mental health so taboo in our black community? Alexis, we'll start with you.
I think in Black communities and Black families, a lot of time we have we operate off of a don't ask, don't tell. It's not appropriate to talk about things that you're feeling outside of the house. I know for Black men, showing your emotions and showcasing it, you're looked at weak. For Black women, I think a lot of the times when we don't show our emotions and we don't talk about certain things, people think it's a term of endearment to say, "Oh, you're so strong. You're so strong." And I think we've allowed that. In saying that we are so strong, I think a lot of times for us, it's allowed us to suppress a lot of feelings and not really express what we need. I think we are now in a beautiful place now where we realize and we're understanding that, we have to heal our traumas to move forward. There's nothing wrong. We all have mental health. And I think now is the point, like, we take care of our body, we go to the doctors for our physical bodies. But I do think now it's time to take care of our mental health so that we can move forward. Suicide rates are up. And it's not just a white people thing, it's also happening in our community as well. I really don't have a direct answer on why it's taboo, but it is. But we're slowly breaking out of it, and it's a good thing.
Can't hear you, Hamp.
I know recently Regina King, her son just committed suicide. And I was listening to, people always give this person was so loving and caring. There was some of his attributes. Talking about how much he cared about other people. And they often give that description. They said they didn't release it while Demaryius Thomas, he was a football player that played for the Broncos. They didn't say how he died. They just said they found him dead, but similar attributes, you know? So why is mental health so taboo in the black community? And if we break out of that, will it progress us forward? Adrian, what you think?
Well, I can't get my
Adrian can't get it together today.
And Verizon's not doing him justice.
Go ahead, Sean. What you think?
Unmute yourself, Sean.
It is taboo, and it's taboo because of what we've always been taught. If you've had a problem in the past, oh, you got a problem, pray about it. Go to church, go to the altar, right? We're not gonna talk about it, but you can go to the altar and give it to God, and He gonna help you fix it, right? So that's always been a problem, and inside of families, not just the large community, but inside of families, we've always had somebody in the family. Oh, don't Uncle Charlie, something wrong with him. Leave him alone. Don't mess with him. You know what I mean? That's always been a thing. Do I think therapy is important? I do think therapy is important. Uh, I think we don't. I think a lot of our older generations are kind of scared to have the conversations of what went wrong with them. So that's trickled down into not talking about it. Much to what someone said, "Don't ask, don't tell." That's a policy that military uses, but that's in the Black community and it's prevalent. I don't think that our older generations they didn't have time to sit down and go through their problems. They didn't have time to deal with them. They had kids, they had houses, they had families. Men worked 14-hour shifts to come home. They couldn't talk about their problems or how depressed they were or having a bad day. They had to get up and repeat the same schedule. So I think we have more time now. We have more freedom. Our careers are a little bit different. We have a luxury. We're not doing a lot of hard labor anymore as we used to. So we do have the time, and I do think it'll move us forward. It'll progress us.
Okay. Slim, what you think?
I think it is taboo for several reasons. I did a post just like 2 weeks ago about just in my youth, by the time I was maybe in 11th grade, I already had 3 friends that had committed suicide, right? Already by 10th grade, I've already had 2 experiences where I saved, outside of the 3 friends that were successful in their suicide, I've saved 2 people from suicide attempts. So I think that the connection between all of those people is kind of echoes what everybody else is saying, is that there's this thing where what goes on in our house stays in our house, specifically Black communities or whatever. Like, you just don't want to. So a lot of times people don't have outlets, right? You have to keep a facade. You don't have an outlet. You're considered weak. Most of the 2 out of the 3 people that were successful in their suicide attempts were men. Regina King's son was men. I think a lot of men in particular just don't have outlets to be able to release their stress. Is there an opportunity for improvement? Yeah. I don't know. I don't know how we can change it. I mean, I think that now
Everybody internet messing up today.
Man, I can't. That's crazy. So I think you guys are right. So, I know a lot of the topics like, suicide rates. Men do lead in suicide rates. I don't know how I feel about suicide though.
What you mean?
Like, in terms of like the empathy I have, right? When it gets so hard that, I do something which I deem can be, I have, people have kids, they still do it. People have lives, job, people depend on them, people that love them, right? And I feel like it can be also seen as like almost selfish, and so I don't want to, speak poorly like on the dead or, the fallen, but when you take your life and there's so many people around you that depend on you, that love you, like, I just feel like, but again, I guess that's the point where we just fight through everything all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But is there a point where you just stop fighting?
I
Like
think
this.
when someone gets to the point where suicide is an option, they don't feel like there's anyone that they can talk to, or that they feel like there's anyone that cares enough about them that if they do die, that it will affect them. So to them, it's definitely not selfish.
Yeah,
We feel
but
like I'll be doing them a favor by just offing myself.
yeah, but that's not always necessarily the case. When you think of the psychology behind the human mind, there's just so many complexities there, so it's never just a one size fits all, meaning people don't always, those that do commit suicide, it's not always because they're just tired of life, or they feel like no one is there to love them, or to care for them or care about them. Sometimes it's that extra mental stimulation of negativity that's constant. They wake up in that negativity and they go to sleep in that negativity, and it's claustrophobic, and they don't know how to deal with it. And the selfless thing that they feel like they can do is to take their own lives, so that way they aren't a burden on their family and friends. So sometimes it's also that perspective too. So I don't necessarily think it's selfish. I think it's selfish for those of us who live and have dealt or have to deal with people who have committed suicide, to say, oh, that person was selfish, because we don't know what led to that person taking their lives, or what was the last straw. Sometimes it's that one mental break where it's just like, I can't wake up another day feeling like this.
Mhm.
And, I just rather not be here. Sometimes not being here feels better than being here. This life is not easy.
Now, I think you're right where the intent wouldn't be selfish, but aren't things still what they are regardless of intent? You just might call it something different. Like when people kill people by accident, you're still killing them, but they call it manslaughter.
Hmm.
Right. So if it still has the same fallout regardless of intent, isn't it still that thing?
It's a matter of perspective.
Yeah. I think
Okay.
with mental health, a lot of times too, it's about the lack of diagnosis, right? So we even know with kids that have ADHD, like, no, he just need to sit his ass down. If I slap him, you need to listen. No, it's a real diagnosis. It's a real it's a real issue. And so it's whether or not people want to accept these diagnoses and get the right help that they need to treat it,
Right.
right?
Now,
And instead of saying, to Sean's point, we all had one uncle that either sat in the room in the back room and drank soda and smoked cigarettes, and we just didn't bother him. But we never really talked about what was his real diagnosis, what's going on with him,
Yeah, what's
right?
on?
So it's you have to overcome the fear of being diagnosed or labeled with whatever it may be that you're suffering with.
Hmm.
If you're bipolar, if you are dealing with depression, that's okay. But I think the fear of being labeled prohibits people from getting the help.
Hmm.
And if you're not being helped, it's easy for you to fall into suicide or whatever, it's easy to fall into that. So I think overcoming the fear of being labeled and getting the treatment that you need for whatever that looks like. If you're bipolar, then cool. I mean, there's
Right.
plenty of successful people that have bipolar disorder or whatever other disorders that are out there. But if they're go untreated, it could end badly.
And we have to do a better job of destigmatizing being
Yeah,
bipolar, or
absolutely.
thinking bipolar is cool, right? Because we didn't grow up like that. We
Yeah.
weren't we don't have that learned behavior to say Uncle Charlie in the corner is bipolar. You just let him chill, right? But if
Or
we
using
called him
those things as
bipolar,
an
we would
insult.
say he's crazy, right? Because that's how we grew up.
Yeah.
So we have to do better at destigmatizing those words, those labels, those determinations, even on children or older adults or whoever it is. We have to do better at that. A
Mm.
lot of times, like you to your point, Slim, that label, it points a negative light on you, so you don't want to try to go get help if you feel like something's wrong. You
Okay,
feel like
hold on,
something's off.
Georgie. B,
Yeah.
what you
So
think?
there's 2 points I want to hit on.
Okay.
What Slim was saying in terms of the diagnosis, if I'm pronounced that word correctly, probably not. But anyway, I have noticed in the Black community, we will tend to sit back and say, "Oh, how do you know you have that?" Or the doctor said you have it, but how do you know you have it? Because Slim actually used an example, ADHD. I have ADHD, And when my friends found out that I had it, they said, "Well, how do you know you have it?" I said, "Well, the doctor said I have it." They said, "Oh, well, how does the doctor know you have it?" So in other words, you're telling me is this doctor went to school for years and he sat back and diagnosed me with ADHD for you to sit back and say he don't know what he's talking about. Okay, cool, whatever. Well, that's what you think, then that's just what you think. I ain't going to argue with you about it. Nonetheless, it is what it is. Another point I wanted to hit on is I noticed that therapy can be very helpful in the Black community if a person seeks it. I go to therapy because I have issues stemming from way back when I was born. You know, I have issues, and I will tell a person, I'm not normal, so I need therapy in my life. And I've noticed that it's helped me in lots of ways. Why all of my relationships haven't worked out, why I struggle with the women issues that I struggle with the birth and the death of my mother. I have struggled with all of that. Black and white, you know, I see things in a gray area. I don't see them in a gray area, not as much anymore. But sitting down with that clinician and putting everything in the perspective is help. And I noticed that maybe until the day I die, I'm gonna need therapy because if I don't have therapy, something and someone, it just ain't gonna. Yeah. So I need that, and I've noticed it has helped me in lots of areas. And I've noticed as well, lots of Black people who go to therapy, they have they have a better life. And there's nothing wrong with that. You know, I have issues and I'm not afraid to tell anyone that. I have a short fuse, you know, and I'm not afraid to tell anyone that. And therapy for me helps keep things in line. And another thing too, I've noticed a lot of in the Black community, people don't want to get therapy because of, you know, the cost of therapy. But there are free services that you can go to. I will admit you have to look into those services a little hard, but if you get a case manager, whatever, they can help you with that. But there are free services available out there. And I can say I do live a somewhat better life because of therapy.
Question B, and then Isha, you could jump right in. I just want to ask him a question. So, 12.8% of Black children are more likely to be diagnosed with ADHD. So when people are asking you that, are they being facetious? Or, you know, when they were asking you,
Oh
maybe
yeah,
they're being facetious, but shouldn't we be asking those questions if our kids are in school systems and they're a little bit more rambunctious because we're more athletic, we got more testosterone, we got more melanin, we got more gifts from God?
right. Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. The key component to it is though ADHD. A lot of people get caught up on the hyperactivity part.
Right.
Yeah.
That is just one component of it.
Mm-hmm.
There's more to it than just hyperactivity. What I would say though is any child is hyper, so you just can't sit back and say, "Oh well, because he's hyper, he's jumping off the wall. He has ADHD." I mean, I had a nephew who used to jump off the bed onto the floor, but he doesn't have ADHD. I mean, it's just what kids do. They're hyper. So there are other components to it, which is why going to that clinician and getting sat down and taking tests will help determine if by any chance you do have ADHD. So yes, absolutely. Ask those questions. Ask those questions. And
Yeah.
ask the doctor, you know, question the doctor. There's nothing wrong with that. Just my thing is when a doctor says you have it and then you sit back saying I ain't got it, he has no fight in it. So him telling you that you have it, you're telling the doctor you don't have it. This man went to school for 10, 20 years. You gonna sit back and tell the doctor, man, motherfucker, now
Well,
Isha, what you was gonna say?
Sometimes trauma responses
Yes.
present themselves as ADHD. And I think that's why a lot of kids in the Black community get diagnosed with ADHD because they've been exposed to a lot. And a lot of times we don't think of it as being trauma because we're just so used to it happening. Well, mom got raped, so her daughter got raped. So that's normal to us in that family. And we can't talk about it, but it's still trauma. And a lot of times people in the Black community don't seek out help because the people providing help don't look like us.
right.
So we're looking at it like, how are they going to understand me and what I'm talking about? Or how am I going to tell this lady on my business and not feel judged?
Yeah.
And as a social worker, I do child protective services. I have plenty of cases that come in because a mom went in to tell her therapist what was going on with her mental health, and now she has a CPS case. So I think the system and the Black community in impoverished communities is just not working the way it's supposed to be working for us, and that's why we don't seek out mental
Right.
health
So,
enough.
Would you say
um,
there's a lot of bias that you see? So when people do seek out help, there's a lot of bias that's happening from the mental health
Def-
professional or
Definitely.
right.
Also, too, I think people don't know the reason to go to get mental health services. I think people think that they have to be feeling sad or something like that. Like depression and anxiety shows up in different ways. You know, sometimes people's body physically reacts. The inability to sleep sometimes, you know, just overactive thoughts, like a lot of these things. And like, it's not normal. A lot of times I hear people talk about like, you know, this generation of kids, you know, they're desensitized and where some people live, you know, um, you've got kids who are in areas where you know they're losing people left and right, and to the outside looking in they're just like, oh, that's just what they're used to. No, they become desensitized to it, and it's not that they don't care, but it's like it's traumatic, and
Mhm.
their body is reacting a certain way. Like those are things like they need to learn, like that's not normal. You having issues sleeping and your mind over racing and you having a short fuse, like it's coming from somewhere. And I think a lot of times people just think, oh well, if someone isn't acting out or they're not acting strange, they don't have mental health issues, and that's not the case. So I think for us in the Black community, it has to be mental health period has to be normalized. And then I do agree to your point, Isha, like having someone that looks like you is a game changer in anything, in the education system, in the healthcare system, period. Having someone that looks like you, who culturally understands what you're talking about, is a game changer.
Yeah, representation really really matters. Like it took me a minute to find a therapist that I felt comfortable with, because there are so many more white therapists than there are, therapists of color. And there's a cultural aspect of it. So even though every therapist may have the foundational understanding of how to treat mental illness, there is a cultural piece that they only understand fully if haven't experienced some of the same things as their patients. So I do think that it's stigmatized in our community, but the reality of it is mental health or mental challenges are not specific to race, it's not specific to gender, and it's not specific to culture. Like we are all human beings, we are all going through this human experience, and this human experience is traumatic in itself. So it always helps to get an objective view to help you process emotions, process feelings, just process, whatever challenges or traumas that you're dealing with. And I think we also need to do a better job at checking in on our friends and allowing our friends or creating a safe space for our friends to be open and honest. So when we're hitting up our friends and saying, "Hey, how you doing? Are you good?" And if they say, "Oh, I'm not good," not brushing it off and being like, "Oh, you playing," or whatever. Like kind of digging deep and say, "Well, what's going on? What's good? Is there anything that I could help you with?" I don't think we really do a good job as a community just lending a hand and saying, "Hey, I'm here to support you, I'm here to help you, if you need anything." We a lot of times, especially the men, tell them to suck it up, "Oh, you're gonna be
I
good
know.
tomorrow," or
Yeah.
"Don't worry about it," and that's not okay, because the reality of it is we don't know if they're going to be good tomorrow, and we don't know if whatever it is that they're going through can be sucked up. Maybe this was their last straw, and us saying, "Oh, well, suck it up," leads them to believe, "Well, I can't share how I'm feeling with this person or anyone else. I'm just going to go ahead and hold it in," and that it builds up, and then we end up in situations where people shut down, or where people feel like they have no other outlet other than to turn to suicide, or to turn to cutting themselves, or to harming other people. So yeah, culturally, I think we really damn ourselves in a sense by expecting Black women to be strong all the time, and expecting Black men to never, express or show their emotions. That's definitely our flaw culturally, I feel.
Caddy, I got a question because something I just want to get clarification before I qualify it. So you said we're all going through the same thing because it's a human experience.
Oh, not going through the same thing. We're all going through we're all going through a human experience. So
But
all
you
of our experiences are independent of each other, but we're still going through a human experience, which means
Regardless of race.
No, black the
regardless of
black
race.
experience would probably be a little heightened than
My question is, if it's like regardless of race, why do we need to identify with the therapist?
Oh, because there's a cultural aspect. So don't conflate what I said. Like what I'm saying is we all have traumas, regardless of race, gender, or any demographic. But there is a difference when addressing that trauma. And in addressing that trauma, it always helps to have representation and the clinician that we choose to help guide us through those traumas. So to have a therapist that looks like me, that maybe is a part of the LGBTQ plus community, so that way I can share experiences, and that person, that therapist, will understand exactly where I'm coming from. That makes a difference. If I go to a white woman, a straight white woman, and I talk to her about some black shit, she may only be able to understand to a certain extent because she doesn't have
Yeah,
any of her own
right.
experiences to associate with.
So with that, so Adrian, let me ask you. So you're saying that the only way we can achieve success in therapy is with sympathy, right? They have to know the experience. So therapists go to school all this time, and are we saying empathy is not enough?
No, empathy is enough. It's not sympathy. Yeah, so you definitely have to be empathetic, and you have to have a high level of EQ to understand someone past your experience. And so therapists are typically taught that, but there's still a learning curve, a cultural learning curve that they miss if they don't have that. If they
Sim-
don't have that intrinsically, meaning if they don't come from the same type of background or a similar background. So, meaning I could probably get help from a black male therapist, but he still will be missing the gender aspect for me. But he'll still be able to understand the black experience to a certain extent where we can, kind of relate. You see what I'm
Okay,
saying? Like
I understand, but I just want
or
to make
finding
it.
a therapist that truly is without bias,
But it
It's,
right?
it's
sounds
a
like
level of comfort.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's what I was about to say, Alex. It sounds like more comfort, right? Because empathy, based on what you're saying, Caddy, just
Mhm.
being transparent, it doesn't sound like it's enough, right? Because
Right.
empathy means you did not have the experience, but
Hmm.
you make me feel in a way
Hmm.
to where you at least understand it or
Right.
respect it, you know? So and I'm just asking, right? Because I agree. Like my wife, we had to have a black OBGYN, OBG, the motherfuckers that take the babies out. Yeah, like they had to be black and a woman, right? For several reasons. you know? But so I get it.
Yeah,
Adrian, now sorry, Alex, I just cuz his shit, he's not blurry. We can hear him okay, so I just want to
it's
give him a
working
chance
now. Good job,
before he
Adrian.
drop
Yeah,
off.
I switched to the laptop, man. I switched to the
Thank God,
laptop.
man.
My bad. But nah, I think having somebody who looks like you, it's important for. I don't think it changes the effectiveness of the therapist, right? And I'm a therapist and I have a therapist, but it's just more about the patient or your client. They feel more comfortable because the way we are trained, we're neutral
Mhm.
regardless. So sometimes having a therapist who can relate to you, sometimes that could be a bad thing too, right? Because then they can start putting their own like personal views on the situation or how they view it, and then they can be triggered, and so now both of y'all, messed up. So I wouldn't necessarily rule it out just because they look different. Sometimes that may be a positive, meaning that they're literally going to just sit there, focus with you on your thoughts. Because when you go to therapy, I always describe it like, okay, like you're the expert on your own life. You're driving the car. I'm just in the passenger seat with you. We're going to explore the different things that you've been through. We're going to come up with different goals. Then I'm going to help you get to where you want to get to by maybe challenging some of those negative thoughts, some of those negative patterns, as well as just giving you different tools, whether you're struggling with anxiety, depression, and using different things like that. So I don't really need to look like you or understand what you are going through in order to help you reach a goal. So I think it goes both ways. But like me personally, my therapist is a black woman, and that's just what I prefer. but it's a lot of other therapists, that I work with that don't look nothing like me. It's majority white women, but they know what they are talking about.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
that's my thoughts. But I do think everybody should go to therapy. Because like it's just mental. So even if it's just for a checkup, you go to get a yearly checkup for your physical health, you should go for a yearly checkup for your mental health. You don't gotta go every week. And it can be something based upon what it is that you're going through. I know I put off going to therapy for a while because I felt like I'm already a therapist. You're not going to be able to tell me nothing I don't know anyway, so it won't be helpful. But she got me right. She definitely checked me. So never mind. I'll save my next thing for my final thought.
All right, look, we up against it. This conversation must continue. We'll
Yes.
phrase the question in a different way to conjure up some different thoughts and aspects. Having a therapist and the people that went to school and actually done it on a panel makes a huge difference. But I think it's important for us to all to have some type of understanding so we can have the conversation, and have discourse if necessary. So, I don't really mess with Jerry Springer, but I do like one of his constructs. Final thought.
There's nothing wrong with a prenup. Get it if you need to. And we all have mental health. Make sure you protect it. Make sure you take care of it.
Indeed.
All right. Final thought: find a therapist you can trust.
Nice.
Black women, we don't have to be strong all the time. Being weak is actually a strength. Use it.
Final thought. I think that there's nothing wrong with checking in with your spouse. You should have check-in points regardless of if there is an expiration date or not. Um, and you should never enter a marriage if you're not looking for the betterment of your spouse, regardless of however that situation ends up. And then also mental health. I think that you should always check in with someone. If you can't afford it, um, speak to somebody about whatever you're going through, and make sure that you voice whatever your concerns are.
Do your best to gain knowledge and understanding of yourself and your situation, your surroundings, and how to improve that by any means.
When you are looking for a therapist, typically you'll get a consultation. That's when you grill the therapist, ask them whatever questions you want to ask, training, all of those different things, because it's a service that you are paying for. So even if you don't find the right fit, make sure you just shop around until you do. But everybody should get therapy.
Now, Adrian, question. Did you
Yeah.
say axe or ask?
I said ask. I said
You can say
ask.
either one. That's a black
Go.
scent.
Here you go.
Okay.
We know that axe is a black scent.
Listen, I I think that marriage is forever with the exception of adultery.
Mhm.
Um and I think that we do need to take care of ourselves. I still think there is value to being tough. I think that is how we got this far, but it's important to explore what tough also looks like and when it's necessary and when you need somebody where you can feel comforted enough to let down your guard and to be vulnerable. Easier said than done for black men, but with the right people we can do it and we'll get there. So, like, share, subscribe, tell a friend to tell a friend, and we out.